Hey everyone. So we are having a summer of great hero adventure movies. The Odyssey, Dune Part 3, and Spider-Man. These are all the classics. They're coming out in one summer. So those of you that follow what we talk about here, you know that Joseph Campbell's hero's journey is something we've been embedding in our work for many, many years since the beginning. Um, all of our methodology is based on taking the student on a hero journey. All of our teachers programs take the teachers on a hero journey. The exercises in class, even in the small kids class, like the obstacle courses and that stuff, is all built around this psychology of the hero story. And it makes sense because since the second we are born, we are constantly being told stories depending on the culture we grow up on. If we're in India, certain stories, if we're in Russia, different stories, in America, other stories. But every place is the same hero's journeys, just dressed up in different cultures. So our psychology is actually built listening to this model. And even though we sometimes don't understand it consciously, it moves us, right? Anything we've learned in our life followed this hero's journey. So if you're not familiar, I recommend for you to get familiar with Joseph Campbell's work. And there's a very good, just free movie on YouTube, Finding Joe, which explains it, on a base level. But Joseph Campbell was a good friend of Carl Jung, the psychologist, and they lived at this time. They were born and lived in this time of the two world wars, and so their work is very relevant to our times because our parents and grandparents were greatly influenced, uh, not only by their work. These are two examples of many, many people that were doing stuff. So we're gonna use again this drawing just to show you how much stuff you can explain with the simple diagrams, with the simple symbology. And, and in the last video, we were using this same diagram to show the middle way, the hemispheres of the brain, and how in capoeira we are always looking for it's the practice of the middle way. But now we're going to use it a little bit in a different way. And I want you, this is two-dimensional, but you need to imagine that if it's a three-dimensional, if it's happening many, many times in all directions, it creates this torus field, like an apple. You know how an apple comes out, so you need to practice a little bit your imagination. And this apple, this torus field, is also sometimes symbolically shown with the infinity sign. And you know that we really like the infinity sign in capoeira. We practice everything in two sides, have it balanced on the right, have it balanced on the left, which is very unique. It's unique because it's more of an art than a sport. In a sport, you just want to maximize uh, your best side. You don't want to waste time on, very few boxers really can switch stances, very few competitive athletes. Um, really spend the time in perfecting both sides. This is more for an artist, yeah, that wants to be free in the circle and doesn't want to be stuck during his creation in the moment, yeah. So we use a lot this infinity sign uh, that can maybe be something like this, going over it, uh, and those of you that are unfamiliar, the basic stations of the hero's journey is we start off in the ordinary world, uh, where there is a status quo. This status quo sometimes is comfortable, like in The Hobbit, where he's in the land where there is always good food and everything is calm and people are just going about their business. Okay, but very, very far away on the outskirts of the whole world, a darkness is starting to spread. and he's called to action from the ordinary world. And sometimes the ordinary world is already bad, is already dark. Yeah, like the Bible story that starts with the Old Testament that starts with slavery in Egypt, the Kapora story that starts with 380 years of slavery and military dictatorship. So, or the gladiator that the prince, or the starts off as a slave and works himself back to the empire. But anyway, there is an ordinary state, and then there is a call to action. Many times, this call to action is not answered the first time. Not every time we say we're going to do something, we do it exactly that time. Sometimes we go back and forth, but eventually, maybe some mentor appears, external mentor or some internal guide, and I'm pushed to go on the adventure. And as I slowly go on the adventure and I pick up friends and skills and tools and knowledge that I'm going to use, eventually I'm going to cross a threshold. Yeah, I'm going to leave the known place and I'm going to go into uh, the middle part of the hero's journey, the second act. Yeah, so this is act one, and act two is going to be usually trials and tribulations and battles and allies and enemies, and always it gets harder and harder and harder. You've never seen an adventure where the monsters get smaller and smaller and smaller. Always they get bigger and bigger and bigger. um, and if at somewhere along this line the hero is going to reach the breaking point, yeah, the lowest point, the innermost cave, where usually there is going to be a death, maybe a real death, maybe a symbolic death. Usually it's a spiritual death, a dark night of the soul. Uh, and after that there is a rebirth, there is a new power, and act 3 is the return. So all the stories in the world follow this path. This was the best way to leave information from generation to generation, to tell stories, especially in times where writing, paper, that knowledge still did not exist. And Joseph Campbell, one of his famous quotes is that myths are maps. So if you look at a story as a map and not as some kind of entertainment or something that who am I identifying with, and you look at it as a map and you try to see that all the characters in the story are different aspects of you at different moments in life, dealing with different pressures in different ways, then you will start to see stories uh, in a new way. Yeah. If we look at a capoeira game, yeah, it follows the same exact, I don't know how to call this, map, or the same exact blueprint. Yeah, you're sitting in the roda in the birimbau. You're in the ordinary world. You're safe. You're just watching, and the birimbau calls and points at you. It's a call to action to come and sit underneath the birimbau. Maybe you're a little bit hesitant and you look to the right and the left. You're not sure that you're being called, but eventually, maybe this time it passes you, and then you say, no, next time I'm going to play. And next time when the birimbau calls you, you play. When you sit to listen to the ladainha and connect to the music, you are on the threshold of the ordinary world. Interestingly enough, this is called in capoeira culture pé da cruz. Pé do birimbau is also called pé da cruz. Remember, we talked about yesterday that in the conjunction point of the right and left hemispheres, this is the cruz. So you see one more hint that when we're sitting underneath the birimbau, we are preparing for the second stage of going into the extraordinary world, the magical world, the mythical world. Then a capoeira game starts, to grow and to grow. And sometimes we are allies and we work together, and sometimes it flips and we are working against each other. But in a good capoeira game, by the end of it, we are not the same person, and my partner is not the same person, and we walk away with a new understanding and return to the circle. And now, when we're watching other games and preparing for to go inside again, we have a new perspective. And part of the return, of course, is to share your knowledge with the tribe, with the people that have still not gone on their hero's adventure. Now, this is one game inside a Hoda, but also if you look at the whole Hoda as one adventure, the Hoda is going to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And also, if you look at your whole journey through Capoeira, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, we still have a few masters um, that have 60, 70 years of capoeira that are alive. So imagine how many hero journeys they have taken and how they've seen capoeira go through its hero's journey. And in capoeira, there's also three general stages to our path. It's not always divided so cleanly in life. When we see a movie, it's very clean because it's a map, and the map has to be clean. But in life, even when you work with a map, uh, sometimes 5 minutes in the movie could be 10 years in life. And sometimes the act one and act two, they're happening parallel to each other. So in the movie, it's a little bit clearer. There's always a scene where you're like, okay, we are not in Kansas anymore. Yeah. But in life, sometimes it happens like this, like very powerful, and sometimes it happens more like subtle, depend depending on how intensively you're living your life. But still, usually looking back, never looking forward, but usually analyzing back, you'll say, okay, this year I was in this stage or that stage. So the three main stages, yeah, the stage one, where you're in the ordinary world, where you're being called to action, where you are refusing the call, where you are starting to walk, but you're still in the known ordinary world. So this could be considered the I don't have a name for this stage, but let's call it the school of body. Yeah, because the first stage in capoeira is where I work mostly with my body. Not 100%, but it's where I'm learning how to reconnect to my body, how to move with my body in all directions, how the game works. It's the preparation stage, yeah, the departure. It's if I'm going on vacation, it's packing my suitcase and getting in the taxi and going to the airport and getting my plane ticket and going through um, security and getting on the plane. And all that can take 10 years, 12 years. It depends, it changes. Yeah, remember that 100 years ago, the people that were coming to capoeira, the school of body was, it was relevant, but a lot of stuff they had down just because the lifestyle was physical. Yeah, today the school of body takes a lot of time. Yeah, some people take many, many years just to connect to the body. And the second part, we can call it the school of mind, but this one has, I don't know, maybe there is a name for the first one in capoeira that I haven't found yet, but definitely the second part has a name, and it's called Campo de Batalha. And the old masters would sing it at the end of the beating, at the end of the ladaia, going into the lovações, to the prayers, and sometimes they would give a little bit of a breadcrumb, campo de batalha, which literally means battlefield, but it's the battlefield of the mind, because here we are in the school of mind. So here is where you go through the battlefield of the mind, which basically means these are going to be the years where you're going to uh, understand that you have taken on yourself many beliefs, many thoughts, many reasons, many preferences, what you like, what you don't like, what is good, what is not good. You come into this area with a lot of black and white, and this part of the capoeira journey is made like a sandpaper to to clear all of your perceptions. And we were talking about all of those signs in the last video. You go back there, and it's all about campo de batalha. It's all about being able to hold on to opposing beliefs at the same time. As long as you're only holding on to one side, you are going to uh, recycle, and you're going to be there's always going to appear a bigger monster, a bigger dragon, until you understand that you are the dragon. In great movies, this area is usually going into the swamp where there is a mist and all of what you are scared of appears, or it's going into the desert for 40 days if it's the Jesus story, or going into the desert for 40 years if it's the Old Testament Israel tribes, or sometimes in Brazil and Africa, it's the Matu Virgin, the forest, like in the Lancelot and Camelot in the Knights of the Round Table, where each one has to enter the forest and go through his own trials and tribulations, because here it's very personal. Even though the main themes that everybody explore are pretty much the same themes, they are themes of separation, themes of being different than the other. Okay, but the way that each person chooses to explore these themes, and the volume and the intensity for each person, it's different. Okay, and this is where not everybody reaches this stage, but definitely if you chose capoeira as your philosophy of life, and you're traveling and you're playing in different circles, and you're meeting people that have different opinions than you, then this is the part of Campo de Batalha. Okay, and then the third chapter, once there is the old thing dies and the new thing is born. Yeah, so it's sort of like in this area of the circle. Then it's starting the third stage, which also has a name, which is called Campo de Mandinga. Campo de Mandinga, and which will literally be described as a magic field or energy field, or the unified quantum field if you're speaking to scientists, uh, which has to do with, after you've reached the center point, then you can become a creator of energy, a creator of Ashe, a creator of Manjinga, and that is the third part. Yeah. So again, all of this can happen in one game. It could happen in a 60-second regional game. It could happen in a 10-minute Angola game. It could happen in a 5-hour Roda. It can happen in a 5-year or in a 5-day seminar in the weekend. And it can happen over your whole career. This idea of cycling through an ordinary state, getting called to go into something unknown. From this unknown, something old has to die, something new has to be reborn. And when this thing reborn, it cycles back, and we go out over it again. One of the side characters in the Odyssey, if you go to see it, he's called the Mentor, right? And that is where we get the word we use today, because back then, every prince, when he was young, every yo-yo, yaya, or princess, they had many, many mentors. It was very much the path of the prince or princess to be mentored by the best people of that kingdom, so that one day when it's time for them to go on their hero's adventure, they had the best chance of surviving and saving the kingdom or coming back to the kingdom. So, by the way, mentor, of course, comes with menshi, which is the mind. So, if we would say mentor is a minder, yeah, it's a guy that is somebody, it's a guide that influences your mind. And of course, our first mentor is our mother, and she is the most influential part of our basic operating system, the person that we are most connected to, cooked by, and later taken care by in the first 2 3 years is the mother, and the mother is responsible of installing the basic operating system on us. And it's not only the human mother, it's anything that is living, uh, plants, animals, and of course mammals and then they go through this kind of process. With animals, it's very quickly. The elephant is born, straight away it gets up and is part of the herd. With humans, it takes a lot more time. It's a lot more sensitive and, and complicated. Yeah. So mothers are the first mentors. And I don't think it's by chance that many songs talk about my capoeira. There is not one song that says pai capoeira. Yeah. Where many martial arts, especially from the East, became masculine. Of course, in all martial arts, there is the middle line, and the best people are the ones in the middle. But some martial arts became sports, became fighting techniques, like Krav Maga is very masculine, MMA is very masculine, very to the point, very straight, very result oriented. And in capoeira, we sing about my capoeira. It's almost as if you thinking about that the roda is a external wound where you get to reprogram your operating system. And so those are some ideas for you to think about, remembering that the real practice of capoeira is a practice of philosophy, of loving knowledge, of always wanting to see the circle from a new angle, and not only 360 like this, but also 360 like this, and also, yeah, and also watching things from upside down. And as you're practicing this, you're actually building your neurology to also think like this. Yeah. A body that cannot move upside down for sure cannot think of upside down. A body that cannot move creatively cannot think creatively. And no matter how much money that mind has in the bank and what society is telling that mind about it, the truth is that if your body hasn't gone there, then most likely your imagination cannot also access that angle. So very much what we do in capoeira, especially in the young program, but also with the adults, is building a very flexible and creating operation system. We use the body because we can see the body. It's very hard to see our internal world, but we use the philosophy, the stories, the songs to make the connection between the movement in the body and the internal state. And slowly we start to see these things. Enjoy.